Will Rosenblatt of LSU Wire yesterday decided he was going to rank every offensive line in the SEC. And he prefaces by saying, I've considered returning production, talent level, and coaching to try and assess which units are in the best position entering 2025. Now, he ranks all 16 in the conference. I'm not going to get into all of them. But at number 6 overall, he has the LSU Tigers. And, that's a big question mark, probably the biggest question mark on this team heading into this season is the offensive line. And he has them 6 out of 16 SEC teams. He does mention that they were one of the tougher teams to rank on this list because they lost 4 NFL draft picks. But I wanted to kind of look at what you lost, what you return as far as guys that were on the roster last year, which freshmen are coming in, and the transfers that you added. Is 6 too high for LSU? There's talent, but a lot of it is unproven. Here's what you lost. Will Campbell, Garrett Dellinger, Miles Frazier, Emory Jones. All 4 multi-year starters on your offensive line. Your 2 guards and your 2 tackles. That's a ton of production, especially with Campbell and Jones, who have been 3-year starters in this program essentially since the day they got on campus. I mean, Will Campbell was a day 1 starter. Jones, not a day 1, but, 3rd or 4th game into his freshman year, he grabbed that right tackle spot, never let it go for 3 years. So, for all purposes, we'll just say full 3-year starters for both of those guys. Dellinger, Frazier. If you remember, Frazier came in after playing his first season out in Florida. He comes in. He's a multi-year starter here. Garrett Dellinger came in as a 5-star. He was a 3-year starter here. Just so much talent and experience between those 4 guys. What do you return? DJ Chester is back. He's the only returning starter from last year's offensive line. But the word is DJ Chester might not even play center. By all accounts of, what the rotation looked like during spring practice, all the reports coming out of camp was that they would like to move him to guard. However, he's still cross-trained guard and center. So you have Chester back. He's your only full-time returning starter. Now, Paul Mabinga returns at guard. He played the last 4 games of the season. If you remember, Dellinger goes down in the A&M game. Mabinga slides in. Then he plays Alabama, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and then, of course, the bowl game. Mabinga struggled at times, obviously. Look, at Kyle Field in College Station is a tough place to be thrown in the fire for your first game. And he looked bad the first 2 games. But if you go look at his PFF grade and how he graded out as an offensive lineman, every single game, he got a little bit better. I think Paul Mabinga showed some promise at the end of the year. You obviously have Tyree Adams back. He played a good bit at left tackle whenever Campbell needed a breather or in that bowl game. Tyree Adams has played a lot of football for you. He's played some guard as well. If you remember before the season, Tyree Adams went down, and Kelly talked about how big of a blow it was until he got back, because he said, Tyree Adams is essentially our 6th man. Whether it's guard or tackle, Tyree Adams is going to come in. We'll shuffle the offensive line if we need to. So they clearly like what they have in a guy like Tyree Adams. You also return Bo Bordelon. He can play guard. He can play tackle. He was used as your big tight end a lot last year. You saw him wearing number 89 out there a lot. Ori Williams is back. Weston Davis, who was competing for that starting spot at right tackle. Cohen Eccles. And he's a guy that when you signed him was a little bit undersized, maybe a little bit under-recruited, but they really like his potential in the future as a possible center on this team. So you do have talent coming back. It's just outside of DJ Chester, very limited experience as far as starting goes. Now, you did a good job in the transfer portal with Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson. Braylon Moore, obviously one of the highest-rated offensive linemen in the transfer portal, was a multi-year starter at center at Virginia Tech. When he came in, a lot of people said, hey, he's the day 1 starting center. But if you go back and look at spring practice, they're making him earn it. DJ Chester was getting first-team reps. Then they would move Chester to guard. Moore would slide in there to center. I think in a perfect world, and what the coaches would prefer, this is just entirely my opinion, Braylon Moore would be the starting center. DJ Chester would take over one of those 2 guard spots. Because you have the most experience that way, right? Because Chester's played a ton. His natural position when he came to LSU was a guard anyways. He kind of played center out of necessity. Then you have Braylon Moore, who can step in there, be a starting center, has played center at a high level, at a Power 4 program at Virginia Tech. That's really good veteran presence right there in the middle. Then you bring in Josh Thompson from Northwestern. He could play guard. He could play tackle. Most like him at guard. I said a little bit earlier when spring practice was going on. I might prefer him at tackle. We'll get into, what the starting offensive line may look like here in a minute. But Braylon Moore, Josh Thompson, both of those guys I expect to start on this offensive line. Now, as far as freshmen go, you brought in two big ones. Solomon Thomas, Carius Kern, both highly, highly recruited guys. Kern reportedly can play guard or tackle. And then Solomon Thomas, just a big guy right there in the middle. He is likely a guard at the next level. And then you signed Tyler Miller as well, who is also a freshman on this offensive line. So what will the starting rotation on this offensive line look like? I think Tyree Adams has locked up the left tackle position, because if you go back in the spring and you look at the offensive line rotations, the one constant on that first string offensive line was Tyree Adams at left tackle. You moved around your guards a little bit. Right tackle's been a battle. We'll get into that in a minute. Obviously, Chester and Moore kind of seeing who's going to play guard, who's going to play center. But Tyree Adams was the constant. He was the steady presence on that offensive line in the spring. I think Tyree Adams is your left tackle, no question about it, barring some sort of injury or something unforeseen before the season starts. Now, at guard, I would like to see Paul Mabinga because, again, I thought he improved a lot from his first start to his last start in that bowl game. But what if it is DJ Chester? Let's say DJ Chester takes over at left guard. That puts Braylon Moore at center. So now you have Tyree Adams, who the coaching staff loves. They've seen him play. DJ Chester's played a ton of football on this team. Braylon Moore comes in as one of your most experienced guys, transfer or returners. At the other guard spot, see, I originally thought it was going to be Mabinga on one side, Chester on the other. I'd have been good with that, have Josh Thompson at right tackle because he's played guard and tackle. But they really, really like Weston Davis at right tackle. I mean, that's a guy that was taking the majority of the first team reps during spring. Again, I thought it was going to be Thompson, but let's say it's Weston Davis at right tackle. Josh Thompson slides in there at right guard. So from left to right, in this situation, it would be Tyree Adams, DJ Chester, Braylon Moore, Josh Thompson, Weston Davis. Paul Mabinga kind of becomes that swing guard, along with a Cohen Eccles, along with a Bo Bordelon. And then Solomon Thomas, Carius Kern, they'll earn their spots as they progress through their college career, but that's kind of the starting O-line right now. The reason I wanted Josh Thompson at right tackle is because, look, Weston Davis was a highly recruited guy coming out of high school, hasn't played a ton of college football. Now, a lot will say, okay, well, you have an inexperienced guy at left tackle, you have an inexperienced guy at right tackle. Sometimes that's a recipe for disaster. Sure, but sometimes it's not. I just mentioned Will Campbell and Emory Jones. They both came in, they earned starting spots at the two tackle spots as freshmen. Boom, you had your bookend tackles for the next 3 years. But how often does that happen? But if this coaching staff and Brad Davis, who I trust immensely, thinks that it's Weston Davis, keep in mind, even though this would be Davis's first year starting, he's been in the program multiple years now. You can bring in a Josh Thompson, and if things get hairy, you can always move Thompson back out to tackle, put in Paul Mabinga at guard. But kind of the lineup you've been seeing is Tyree Adams, DJ Chester, Braylon Moore, Josh Thompson, Weston Davis. That's kind of been the group that we've been seeing. And again, that can flip-flop because Chester and Moore can flip-flop. Thompson can move out to guard. Thompson can move from tackle to guard. Mabinga can slide in there at guard. Not only did you do a good job of adding veteran presence with Moore and Thompson, I think you did a good job in high school recruiting. I mentioned Solomon Thomas and Carius Kern. You also have some depth. Ori Williams is a guy that they like. Cohen Eccles, we talked about him. I think he'll be the backup center. Solomon Thomas, Carius Kern, Paul Mabinga, Bo Bordelon. I mean, that's 6 guys I just mentioned that could possibly be rotational pieces on this offensive line. So while there's not a ton of returning production and a ton of returning starting experience, I think there's talent on this offensive line. And if they get the starting rotation right, there's a lot of depth here as well. There's a lot of versatility. Again, because of DJ Chester and Josh Thompson. I think those two guys are the key to this offensive line. So your rotation, that'll take shape. That'll form organically when you get into fall camp. You'll get a clearer picture on that. But whether it's Thompson at guard or tackle, Chester at guard or center, Mabinga as a starter or a rotational piece at guard, you have a lot of options, and I think you have a lot of talent on this offensive line. That, of course, is the biggest question mark for this team headed into 2025. You got the running back in Caden Durham. Garrett Nussmeier's coming back as his second year in this program as a starter. He looks to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and we know about all the weapons you got on the outside. At tight end, at wide receiver, your pass catchers are elite. this offense will go as the offensive line goes. We'll see how it plays out as we get closer to fall camp.